Alright everybody, we've got this 94 Pathfinder that we are prepping these back doors and the front bumper for paint. And the front fenders aren't fitting quite right just yet. I'm still going to work on these bushings and try to get the front fenders to fit better. And in doing so, I've bent this lip right here in. I forgot to do that, so I might have to rework these fenders. I probably created some dents right in here. But that fender is not even on yet, so still got to do all of that. And then I had these back doors in the last video, and I'd put epoxy primer on there, and now I've got the epoxy sanded. I used these blocks right here, and I used a longer block right here. This is 320, and I let this epoxy dry for about 5 days, and it still wasn't curing out like I wanted. So I took it out into the sun yesterday. It was a really pretty day outside. It's like 60 degrees, and it's been 50 at night and close to 70 during the day. But it's been inside my shop, and it's just not been warming up in here at all. It's staying around 60 in my shop. So pulled it outside, and that really made it pop. It cured out really quick. I've got both doors pretty much ready to go. So I've got a few, let's see if I can catch the light right here. I've got a few low spots, nothing real serious. That's a high spot. So anything that gets down to bare metal is going to be your high spot. I've got another high spot right here. It's a little bit low right here. I'm going to go ahead and scuff all of this back down. I want to get all of the shiny spots out. So after I blocked it wet, I would keep the panel wet, and on the contours I would use this kind of spongy block that will adhere to shapes easily. Right here where it makes a big bow, I would use that. Right there where I want it flat, I would use a big long flat, or if it wasn't going to be that long of an area, like up in here, you can use this has a bend in it, so I would use a little bit of a shorter block and around here. And to go around curves, sometimes you might need a block like that that will bend. These other ones do not bend. So I'm just going to take a red Scotch-Brite, and I'm going to scuff up these shiny areas. And I'll be done with epoxy, so I can come back in with the high fill primer. And I've got a little nib right here. I'm going to try to use high fill primer on that. Take care of that one. I've got the bumper outside still. I'm going to let it soak up some sunlight today. It's not been painted as long as these with epoxy. And I didn't make an order back with Orion for the high build primer. I think I'm going to have to use the Tamco that I've got on the shelf. I'll put you on pause. We'll get that out and look at it. I'm going to use this. That's from Tamco. That is going to be a high build white primer and the hardener for that. And I'm not going to reduce this right now. I'm going to try to spray this on thick and then later today it'll be ready to sand again. And it should, little things, that's kind of a big thing, but the small imperfections, I'll have to catch the light just right for this one. But the little, you can see that one, and that's going to be very minute. But and also some of these low spots will fill in a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is spray that on probably 2 coats, and then I will use my blocks again wet with 320, and I'll get this a little bit smoother than this is, and then it will be ready for sealer. And at that point I can carry these upstairs and store them so they do not get damaged, and they will be ready to paint once I get to I don't even have my materials to paint, so once I get to that stage I can go ahead and start painting. And I'm most likely going to paint panels at a time, because my shop is not set up like I want it yet. I've only got these 2 exhaust fans up here to suck my overspray out. The what floats in the air will land back on your vehicle. I've got these filters that are filtering air coming in, but I think that's not enough, and I don't want to, but I may have to add a 3rd fan. What I'm kind of thinking about doing is building some kind of system where I can raise the garage door up slightly and then put maybe a couple fans down here and build a wall with 2 fans in it. So I'll have 2 up here and 2 down here, and that should really kick out some air, but that's not going to be enough. So I'm not sure. This doorway, I have to put a filter in or filter this air. It would be best to filter all the air coming into just this part. And I'm kind of learning how to do this. I'm just trying to work in my backyard here. But this is my system. My air compressor goes into some copper tubing that I have sweat all these joints together. This leaks a little bit of air, this union, and I've got another union right over here that leaks some air. I don't really like that air leak, but I try to just keep my compressor turned off so it doesn't kick on. But it goes down, and there is a ball valve on all of my low points. It goes down, up, down, up, down, up, and I can bleed all of my water out of my air out of these ball fittings right there, and it will come through the wall. And I have another ball valve right there. I can let water out, and I can connect a hose here if I want to. And I've got it coming up and over, and every 10 feet I have another like a water trap with a ball here every 10 feet. So it goes over to here, and then I have my last one, and then it comes into all of this, which I'm trying to get a new one that is better than this, but that's what I've got for right now. It's working pretty decent. It gets a lot of the water out. I hardly ever get water in here anymore. I've been fighting that. So, but I do realize that this is not enough air intake. So, in order to not have like an orange peel effect on your clear coat, you have to get that out of the air. So the more you spray, the bigger the vehicle, the more panels that you spray, the more you'll have floating in the air. So if I was to spray like a fender, a front door, and a back door laid out like this, they would come out a lot smoother. And then I can do the other side. Then I can do the hood and the trunk, and then I can bring the body in and spray it, and then just assemble without scratching it. But it's kind of what I'm thinking of doing. So, alright, I'll cut you back on in a minute. I've not used this in several months, so I'm going to have to stir it up really good. This stuff is pretty thick. The hardener, that will cut it down some. But this does not need that induction time that the epoxy primer that I was using needed. So once I stir this up, it mixes 4-to-1. So I'm going to use my cup over here, and I'm going to put it in there 4-to-1 and stir that up a little bit, and then I will screen that into my 2.5 tip gun, and then I will be able to spray directly as soon as I get it mixed. And I've already taken the doors and I put some wax and grease remover on them, and they are, I'm letting that flash off right now. They'll be ready to spray whenever this is ready. Alright, I'll cut you back on. That looked like it filled in pretty good on this one. This paint is super thick, so it might fill all of that in. It's definitely way better. I might actually have to come back and put something on that prior to base coat. We'll see. I'm going to go ahead and spray the rest of this door. I'll come back and hit this another time or two in this one spot right here. Alright, so it is 6:38 in the morning, and I've already prepped and primered both doors, and I got my gun clean. I got time now. I can clean up and take my daughter to school. You can look across and see the sunlight, how it hits. I think I've got them pretty straight. This was the door that I was considering throwing away. It looks pretty good, really. Mainly the bad spot was right in here. I don't know, it looks pretty straight. This door, I didn't spend as much time on it, nearly as much time, but it's pretty straight too. There was that spot right there. You can still kind of see it, so I'm still going to pay attention to that and make sure that I don't mess that up. But for the most part, I think this is really working out good. I'll cut you back on. We'll do that bumper here in just a little bit. So I just wet the bumper, and my sprayer froze over the winter time and it busted it, so it leaks really bad. But we're just going to put a little water on here. I'm going to use this shorter block with some 320, and back here paper will have what it is. I'm just going to use this flat block and go around this bumper pretty good. I just kind of make circular motions. If you go back and forth, it could catch, and I don't really like that. I like to keep it moving and never stop. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. And I actually didn't strain this primer, so there is trash in it, but all of that will come out real easy. So that piece of trash is almost gone already. Just clumps of paint is what that is. See, there's some right there. And it's pretty much gone. So we'll just do that over the entire bumper. And there is a couple spots. Let's see if I can find one. Right here is one. So I'm just gonna pay extra attention to that. There's just a few spots like that on here. And I've got the doors over here in the sun. I'm gonna give them a little bit of time. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna hit those with some of that 320. But you can see they look pretty good. I think that's gonna be perfectly fine. I thought one of these had a high spot. Yeah, it's right here. I think that's actually a high spot and a low spot. I don't know if you can catch that in the camera. And here's that spot right there. I'm going to pay extra attention to that, make sure I do get that out. That's about it. I'll catch you back on. I'm going to let this sit out here in the sun and let it dry and bake for a few hours. And then I will come back and see if it's ready for some high field primer. We still got this little spot right here going on. It's pretty smooth though. I'm gonna go ahead and go right into sanding on these. I got some new sandpaper. Start fresh with it. I'm gonna get all of this grass off of here. Spray this with water and start sanding on this. Alright. And it starts to curve right here, so I'm going to try to stay away from that area with this block. The closer to actual paint base coat clear that we get, the more concerned we are about trash and stuff in our primer. So we're going to have to get all these little nibs and stuff out of this. Really kind of need to get it out on this coat. So I'm going to try to do my circular motions. You can't always do a circular motion, but where I can, I definitely will. And this should smooth out pretty quickly. This primer sands fairly easy, so I'm going to get these smaller blocks. This one's almost dry. I kind of want that to stick, so I'm going to let that dry a little bit more. I'll get those smaller blocks over here and work some of this other area with those blocks. And then this next coat, I'm going to go ahead and spray white, but it needs to be a sealer coat, and it needs to be super clean. So I'll thin it down and make it a sealer, and hopefully it'll turn out really smooth to where I could just lay the silver and then the blue on top. I'm not going to spray this today. I just need to get it sealed up, and then I'll put it in storage and I'll come back and scuff once I'm ready to spray. If the bumper that I've got over here in the yard, if it appears like that primer is drying out good and curing out here in the sun, I may go ahead and spray it today. So I'll cut you back on in a minute. Here's the bumper after it dried. You can still see some sand scratches in here, so it definitely needs some high fill primer. I'm going to come back and hit that with a red Scotch-Brite pad and get rid of all of the shiny, and then I will prime this. Let's go check out these doors over here. I sanded this one down, and you can see I do have a high spot where it is gray, and it is a little bit low right here. I'm going to go ahead and roll with that. It is definitely low here, but that is a factory dent. That's going to be fine. That's actually, with the buildup of the primers, that is actually closer than the factory had it. So I'm just going to roll with that. And the spot that was right here, it's really sunny out here, and I have no idea if my phone is focusing on this or not, but the spot that was right in here somewhere is completely gone. I do not see it. So the high fill primer took care of that, and this door is basically ready for a sealer coat. I'm going to go ahead and sand this one down with the blocks, the same as I did that one. I used this block. It's kind of flat right here, so I used this one for right there and in here, and some along the flats of these, and then I went back and hit it with some of this little cushy block. You can shape that one around real easy, and I definitely, where it dips down right here, comes into that bulge, and up in here with this one and this big flat one. I did some of this with the big flat one, and then all of it from here to here is flat, and I went both directions, and it curves slightly. That kind of that way it curves, but this block will curve some. If you get two hands on it, it will curve a little. So I went ahead and went both directions with that, so that I wouldn't, maybe I could work out a low spot if it had one, like a little door ding. I did have a few door dings, and I knew this primer would take care of it after I had one coat of body filler. So it's kind of where I'm at. I'm going to go ahead and scuff this one, and then I will get it back in the shop and put a sealer coat, and at that point these will be ready. So after the sealer coat is cured, I will store them. I'll cut you back on. So this is the door that I was going to throw away, and that thing is pretty smooth. So anyway, I'm going to let these dry. I don't want any water at all on when I'm spraying it on. Sawhorse, I just threw this door on that so that I could use that other thing to primer that bumper. But if there's any water anywhere and air pressure blowing could toss the water over onto my panel, that would not be good. I'm just gonna let these sit out here and dry for a while. I might get out here with a blowgun and blow some of this off with air pressure, like right now, and then that water won't be there even to evaporate, so the sun can work on what's left after the blowgun gets on it. I'm gonna blow this off, and I'm gonna primer this. So this is where the driving light sits. That is an exhaust reducer, as I've stated in a previous video, and I just put a 2x4 underneath that so that I could keep this edge off of that, so that I could spray that edge with primer, and not have to worry about interfering with anything. And all right, I'll get to blowing this off. I will add right now that I do plan today to get this in this high build primer, and I will set that in the sun and let that bake for like 2 hours just out in the sun. And I will be cleaning my shop, sweeping up. I will try to get this harness kicked over there because I still need a few parts off that harness. I will blow this out with air, with a big leaf blower, and I will blow some of this off up here and around, and then let it settle, and I'll blow it out again. Then I will wet the floor, and I will squeegee and scrub the best I can with all these other projects that I have going on in the way. And try to clean my shop up so I don't get dust. So my plan is to have this blue by the end of the day. And I will add that I cleaned on my Titan yesterday, and I used Tire Wet. I didn't use it in here, but I do have this bottle in here. I don't want silicone anywhere near paint. It's dark in here. I will put this in this room with my cleaning supplies in that cabinet. That will be out of the way. That will cause an enormous amount of fish eyes, and you will have to wait 3 days and sand it all back out and start over. And had to do quite a bit of work to the good old Titan. Got 250,000 miles. The ball joints were wore out. Put new upper control arms on it yesterday. And there's something in the front end still popping. So I've not got it fixed. It's better than it was. But anyway, alright, so I'm gonna start blowing this off with an air gun. So I went ahead and thinned it so it would be more of a sealer primer. But I put enough coats that I've got some little burrs here and there. I can scuff this down just a little. And then I'm going to go ahead and spray silver, and then blue, and then clear. So at this point my shop needs to be pretty clean. I'm going to go ahead and start scrubbing on my shop, and then I'll get these doors in there. I put some car wash soap on the floor, and usually I'll use like a Dawn dishwashing liquid, but I don't really see it out here, so I'm just going to scrub this around with a bristle brush, push broom, and just kind of scrub around a little bit with 2 hands off camera. And this will get some of this stuff up. I'm only going to use this little area right here. I've already blown the shop out pretty good. I may blow it out again and then re-wet the floor and then spray. This will be good enough for the doors. This sealer primer. You spray sealer primer on mainly, I think, because I don't do this for a living, so I'm sure there's more than this reason. But I'm gonna pause you while that's running. So I think sealer primer is good for if you do body work. You got some body filler, and when you go to lay your base coat and clear, if you've seen a vehicle with a circle that is not super shiny, it's kind of dull in one spot, that's probably Bondo, and they probably didn't use their sealer primer like they should have. So the sealer primer will go into the little sponge-like Bondo, and it'll fill it in, and then whenever you lay your base coat and clear, it'll be all smooth and shiny. Alright, I'll cut you back on in a minute. I think I'm going to go ahead and spray I've got a gnat in here. Oh my goodness. Oh, these gnats this year. I've only sprayed one thing this year and it turned out terrible. It was in one of my other videos. It was that little speed shape that I painted blue to get the color for this. I got 6 gnats in one speed shape. Anyway, so I'm going to use this. I got it from Harbor Freight. This is their Black Widow. It is a 1.7 tip. I'm going to use this for the sealer primer. I'm going to wipe all of this down real good with wax and grease remover. Get all of this. This is where I blew my shop out. These were in front of my shop. So I'll blow that off with air and then wax and grease remover. And then I will mix up my sealer primer pretty thin, and I'll use this 1.7 tip. This Black Widow, it's a fairly inexpensive gun and it seems to work really good. So I will do that and I'll catch you back on. I went ahead and shut all of my doors and I am pulling air through those now and pulling air out of here now. So what I am hoping to do is stir the gnats up and get them to leave. I've got this pretty thin. I'm going to go ahead and strain this. I keep forgetting to strain, so I'm going to strain this and know that it is clean, and then I will try to get a clean, even coat on these doors. Alright, I got ready to spray and my gun was acting really goofy. It was just blowing stuff out, so I tore it apart and I had this piece of chunky stuff inside the gun. Right there. It was on this nozzle needle piece. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some lacquer thinner around in this, and then I'm going to put it back together, make sure it's dry, and then I will start straining my paint again and hope for the best. Alright, so that gun, I guess there's something wrong with it. So I went ahead and I switched over to the Soda Jet 3000. This gun has never failed me. Everything feels good. The trigger, everything is high quality. And the outcome of the primer is also high quality. That is not my primer gun. That's the first time I've ever sprayed primer in that gun. But it did a really good job. Both doors are looking really slick, really nice. So I'm going to give this about 2 hours and I will carry this upstairs. Actually, I'm probably going to carry this outside and let the sun bake on it for a little bit. But I'm going to go eat lunch. I started at what, 6 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock this morning on this video. This is still the same day. It is May the 4th. May the 4th be with you today. So I'm gonna eat lunch. It is 11 o'clock and man, these doors are looking really good. That spot that I was concerned about was right here. That dude is gone. That's looking really good. Alright, and after lunch I'll carry these out into the sun and I will carry the bumper in here and I will start scuffing on it, and might actually scuff that out on the outside of the shop so I don't get my floor all messy again. Alright, see you in a minute. Alright, everything was going good. I was using my solder and I started with the silver. This is the only silver that I have on hand. It is a pretty, just a silver. It's not dark or anything, it's pretty bright. And I was spraying and everything was looking good. And then something happened. I don't know what that is, but it is not going to work. So at this point, I've got something going on right here too. at this point, this will have to cure for a while, and I will have to sand that out. Okay, so I pulled this out into the sun and to let it kind of cure out faster, and I used this block on some 500 grit, and I have kind of scuffed back down where the goof ups were. And what I plan on doing at this point, I will get my silver and I will spray very, very lightly, very thin coats. And I'm not going to really reduce this. I'm going to use it basically straight, because the reducer will activate what is underneath it, and the thin coat will also allow it to flash off quick and not activate what is underneath it. And I will do that. It's going to take me a little bit. And if you pull this half trigger, I'm going to try to do this. I've still got paint in the gun. So half trigger will just be air. Full trigger is air and paint. So you can do a little bit of paint with just the trigger by working the trigger. That's full paint. And that half trigger will just be air. So you start introducing some paint, and you can kind of work your trigger and get a little bit of paint in there, and mainly air, and make your coat real thin. So that's what I'm going to do, and see if I can get this to lay down smooth without reactivating the undercoat. Alright, it's really bright and the camera's probably not going to pick up anything. I went back and was editing while this dried in the sun, and all I see is a little bitty tiny speck. I'm going to go ahead and see if the blue will cover this. This is like 4 different attacks at this. I sanded it with the 500, and then I came back and I hit this very lightly, and then 10 minutes very lightly, another 10 minutes very lightly, and now the bumper is silver, and I've just got that little speck right there. I'm gonna go ahead and see what this blue will do. I've got my gun clean and got all the silver back out of my gun, and I am fixing to stir up this blue and get it in my gun and see what happens. I'm not getting any bugs in that silver, and hopefully I won't get any in this blue, and it will flash off quicker outside. So I'll cut you back on in a minute. Alright, that is the first coat, and that is becoming more visible. This is going to fight me the whole way. It may not work, but so your fan pattern on this gun is right here on the side. So I took my fan way in tight like that, and I sprayed and got down inside of here on both of these. And generally I'll spray with it all the way out. I think I'm gonna let this sit for a minute. I'm gonna scuff that. I'm gonna have to work on this some more. That is not cool. I've got a little wrinkle right there, and a little wrinkle, big wrinkle right there. I'm gonna work on it a little bit more, I think. I'll let this sit for probably 20 minutes, and I'll cut you back on. After a lot of sanding with 1000 grit, and a lot of filling and working, I was able to get most of that out. There's a little bit right here you can see in the light, but for the most part I've got it all out. There, you can see it right there. If that shows up, then I'll just redo the bumper. It's not really that big of a deal. The vehicle won't be painted probably for another month anyway, so I can just throw this back in there. So now I'm going to go ahead and use the Iwata Supernova to do my clear. And what I have on the shelf is Tamco, the Euro Clear 2104. I'm going to spray that and give it a kind of a light coat, and then 2 full coats, and we'll see what it looks like. Alright, so I got them upstairs. These things are very, very smooth. I don't know what that is. Probably did that carrying them up here. Anyway, so that's what they look like. They are ready for paint. So here is the bumper. I got a gnat there and a gnat there. I got a couple little pieces of trash. Looks like another gnat right here. Stupid freaking gnats. I got a couple runs in the very top, so I'll just have to scuff it and shoot it again. But I don't see any issue. Maybe just a hair right here. If you catch it in the right light, you can see it. That's not a problem. I'll just roll with that. I just gotta scuff it and shoot it with clear again. Get this trash out of it. I wish the sun was out and we could see this part of this pearl in the blue, but looks like there's another gnat right here, right there. Anyway, whatever. Maybe these gnats will go away before I do any real paint. Alright, so just keep in touch for more of this build. I will talk to y'all later.